be recognized as the one with the metal. It's not the silver new one, it's the metal floral cover with the round luchot. Okay, so this one, it's a Sephardic script, and it's on klaf mashuach, which is the coated parchment. So it's been painted white. That's why it's got all the staining on the back and on the front, because when they're painted white, they rub, the coating rubs against the back of the parchment, and it ends up with this type of, can you get a close up on that? It ends up with that type of staining.
You can actually see.
Yeah, that's from the coating. But it's a common Sephardic tradition. This is an inexpensive Torah scroll, and it's not very, the writing is, satisfactory, but nothing special. But because it's coated, it's not a good prospect for repair, because it's very difficult to repair the coated parchment. So if this has got sections with cracking and broken letters, which it may well have, I'll go have a look through it. It's probably not as good of an option to repair as the ones that are not. So let's call that our first Torah, and then we'll have a quick look through it, and we'll see what we can do. So I've just rolled through a little bit of it, and it looks to be pretty consistent. Like, I don't see any sections which are completely like cracking or anything like that. So there's a little bit of stitching work that needs to be done, but I don't see any like real, broken letters or fading letters or cracked letters, which can happen with a coated parchment. They can get these little cracks in them. So without going through the whole thing, this one looks okay. So if there's anyone that has found problems with it, if they can tell us where it is. Otherwise I can just roll through it, spend a few hours here and go through all the Torah scrolls from beginning to end and really see what they're like. But I think this one should be left as is, because if it's kosher, it's just a functional basic Mashuach scroll, and it would be a good backup for the main one. This is a slightly smaller one than the new scroll. The new scroll would be 56 centimeter parchment height. This would be more like 48 or 50 without measuring it. This is more like the size of a standard Ashkenazi scroll, but it's a Sephardic one. Unlike the first one, which was also smaller, this is not coated parchment. So this is regular parchment, the way a Torah scroll would be written today. So the back is unpainted, the front is unpainted, it's natural parchment, it's good quality. The writing is a bit more simple than the new one, but it's clear and it's neat and it's easy to read. It doesn't have the Bedek Chaya crowns, which is something that you see very often with the Sephardic script. But it looks to me like in good kosher condition, and judging from what I can see here, it looks like it was donated by a bunch of people, like more of a communal sort of Torah rather than individual. But it's also fairly new. It's not anywhere near the age of that first one that I saw, and certainly not anywhere near the age of some of the old ones that are here. So my guess would be this is the second youngest Torah out of the lot, and I see no reason to panic unless there's something I don't know about. I don't see any reason to go through this whole scroll and look for anything. It looks to me like it's in good condition. It's newish. When I say newish, it's not ancient. So I'm happy to leave this one as is. No need to look at this one further. This one is identified with the inscription of all the names inside of the donors who donated the different parshiot. And then, yeah, we can close that. That one's, oh no, actually that one's not broken, that's there. And it's got the velvet that clips on the front. So that's obviously up the front for a reason, because it's being used. Yeah. Okay, so that's, you want? Okay, so that, just reading that, That looks to me like the donor Yitzhak Biton. So in memory of, I'm guessing his father, who passed away in 1979. This is, I'm not sure, I don't know the history of it, but that looks like he's someone who sponsored it. I'm not sure what all the different names inside. Maybe some of the Parshiot were sold, or most of the Parshiot were sold as well. But that's seems to be the major donor. And then here you've got the second donor on the other side, being Rabbi Malka, who I think was the rabbi here at one point, in memory of, I guess, what's his father, who passed away in 1980. So probably those two rabbis were prominently featured on the outside. I don't know the history again, but they were on the outside and everyone else was on the inside. I'm not quite sure. But the main thing is the condition of the scroll is, as I mentioned previously. So that's a good one. Now we're jumping to this one. This was in the back. I'm assuming it's not kosher. It looks very old. I can see just looking at the column that it's open to. You have a few cracks here in the letters along the crease. I'm assuming that there's probably more of that. These, here you've got those, that mem and that hay is cracked right through the bottom. Can you see that? I'm assuming there's sections that need a lot of work. Without rolling through it, this is an old Torah scroll written on gvil, which is both layers of the skin, which is common in the Sephardic tradition of the older Torahs, especially. You don't see it that much today. In fact, you hardly see it today. The other thing is that the words are very, very close to each other, almost no break between some of the words, which is also different. You can't fit a letter yud in between the words here. They're all squashed together. The bet is very round and the akev of the bet is very subtle. These are the things that you see in the older Torahs, in the older Sephardic Torahs. I don't imagine this would be kosher. I'd imagine there'd be many broken letters and it would need a good extensive repair. So, don't know the age of this one, but definitely on the ancient side. When I say ancient, could easily be 100 plus years old. Okay, all right, so this Torah is, so that's the green one with the purple cloth, but the outside, the tick is green velvet. Okay, there's an inscription here that it's in memory of someone who passed away 120 years, just under 120 years ago. So the Torah could well be 100 years old. I don't know exactly. This is like the first one. It's the mashuach. It's the coated parchment, which was common for Sephardic Torahs in general, up to about probably even 30, 40 years ago. It was being done like that. But this is certainly much older. From what I can see, the writing looks very, very nice. Because it's mashuach, it's got the coating, it's unlikely to be kosher throughout, all the way through the scroll. I'm sure there are sections that have got cracks in it. Again, I can have a look at that. If I spend more time, I could roll through it. But this is probably not in regular use. It's also a smaller one, as you can see. It's smaller than the others. This is probably like a 45 centimeter scroll, a bit smaller than the previous one, and nowhere near as large as the standard clough parchment size today, which is 56 centimeters for a Sephardi scroll. This is almost identical to the orange yellow one over there. So this is the large purple one, not the small purple one. And this is on gvil. This is the old Sephardic way of making the parchment out of both layers of the skin. So that's the second one we have like that. Also very similar in writing, in the actual ktav itself. It may even be the same sofer as the other one, without without comparing them both in front of me, it's very, very similar. Everything is very, very similar. Same vintage, same quality, same parchment, same size. So we would need to take this down and have a good look at it, roll through it to see where it's at in terms of kashrut. But again, quite old. Okay, so this is the last one we're looking at. This is on the back left corner. And this is another Mashuach one, another coated parchment. Oh gosh, this is also quite old. You can see the staining from the coating gets stained. This probably happened from the, that's interesting, sticky tape there. But it's probably throughout the scroll, it's probably got sections that are, this is already faded, it's gone brown. There's probably sections that are broken. I would imagine this would also need work to get it to a kosher status, but less of a candidate for repair because of the fact that it's a coated parchment. So all in all, the four problematic, well I say problematic, non-regular Torahs which are unlikely to be kosher, two of them are coated parchment and two of them are old gevil where the words are very close together, and it would be very difficult for a software today to cope with that. So they're both not ideal, like I'm saying, both styles. The coated parchment are hard to work with, hard to restore. The gevil, which are the taller ones, the yellow and the purple one, are, the style of the writing is very different to today, especially with the spacing. So yeah, you'd have to send it, if you do want to fix these up, you'd first have to roll through each Torah thoroughly and look at and see what has to be repaired, and then see if it's worth repairing. So that's where we're at. Okay, so the four Torahs in the back, which are the old ones, are not great candidates for repair, only because, and this is probably why they haven't been really fixed up in the past, because the two big ones, the words are very close together and it makes it difficult to read. That's the purple one and especially the yellow one. And even though they're beautiful historic Torahs, you can't fix the spacing. In Baghdad that was common, like a century ago, whatever it was. But today it's not. It's going to be, whoever reads from it's going to complain about it. It's too distracting, and it's, you know, we're restricted today about certain things, and there are people that are going to say it's not, you know, it's too close for comfort. I'm not saying it was written in the non-kosher way. Obviously that was the way it was done at the time. Today it's, you know, we've changed that. The spacing is more spread out the way people are used to today. So I think that makes them not, you know, because you can't fix that. So even
not
if you
good candidates for repair.
Even if you fix all the cracks and you go through to make sure the letters are all black, and they look black, but they're all solid, no cracks, no, you know, you'd still have to think if it's worth it, if it's not going to be used, because you can't really do anything about that. So that's the two big ones. The other two smaller ones are old Mashuach. They've got the coating. The coating makes it very difficult to repair, because what happens is when you try to fix it, the ink runs, it doesn't absorb into the parchment, it's very hard to work with. And then also because it's got a coating, the coating can create little hairline cracks in the letters, because the coating is basically like a paint, like a sid, like a layer that's put on top of the parchment. When that cracks, the letters crack. So the parchment, the ink doesn't actually get absorbed into the parchment and become flexible. It always sits on top of this barrier, and therefore it's harder to work with, subject to cracking, subject to getting very dirty, and not really designed for repair and long-term use. So that's the problem with the Mashuach ones. You've got one here that looks okay, which is newer, seems to be newer, so leave that one, but probably not worth repairing the coated ones either. So if you had a beautiful old Torah scroll here that was just needed to be re-inked, we would say maybe it's worth fixing, send it off to Israel, or have someone here look at it, try to do it. But there isn't a candidate like that out of these four. So I don't know if it's worthwhile, but certainly we can explore it if that's what you want to do.
Okay, may I ask, is it worth considering putting a new scroll in any of these Torah? Are any of them good candidates to have a new scroll put in?
So there might be some historical value in these covers. I don't know their age and I don't know how rare they are. That's not my area of expertise really. But if somebody wanted to, they could fit a typical Sephardic scroll, could easily fit into those covers, a 56 centimeters Sephardic scroll.
Is that the yellow and the purple
Both
ones?
the yellow and the purple. You can fit them into the other ones too, but they would need to be a little bit smaller, which you can get them in any size really, but that would be a little bit more unusual. There are scrolls written in that size, but they're all got some value, the covers. There's nothing that's really like, again, I don't know I could be wrong. They could be very valuable and antiques. I'm talking about the covers, but I don't know. I don't know if it could be that in Israel they're lying around a dime a dozen. It could be that they're very rare. I don't know.
Okay, so we'll look into that.
You can look into that, yeah.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's interesting. So let me take this.